Hello guys, welcome back to In 5 Minutes. In this presentation we are going to see our entity or the architecture declaration in the VHDL. So any digital system consists of entities and architecture in a VHDL code. So VHDL code, we are writing the code for the digital system. So any digital system is defined in terms of entity and architecture. So we will see what is an entity and what is an architecture. So entity basically it is the hardware description of the digital system, whereas architecture, if you'll say, is the declaration which describes the operation of the components. So architecture will give you detailed operations of different components in the digital system. On the overview, what you can say that if entity is a function to be called, then architecture is a proper description of that function. Why I'm using function? Because function is more familiar term to you, because function we are already used in the C language or in the embedded systems. We declare functions to have the subroutines in the program, so it is just like that. Entity is the hardware descriptions, or you can say it declares the input and output interface, and how these input and outputs to be used in the proper manner, that will be described in the equation wise of the Boolean laws or Boolean expressions in the architecture. Before starting with the example, entity is a single type in which you define a number of inputs and number of outputs and their data types, whereas in architecture there are three types. So that three types we will see. Furthermore, let us start with the entity. So first one, the example I have taken here is the entity half adder. So this is the example of half adder. Now for this half adder, the entity name is HA. Now there are certain rules to define the entity. So what are these names? Valid names of entity. There are three rules to follow. The entity name should be a combination of letter, digit and underscore for the separation of two different words. So you can combine underscore, a letter, that is the alphabet A to Z, and a digit 0 to 9s you can use. But while writing the name of entity, first letter should be alphabet always or a number. It cannot be underscore. Underscore cannot be the first letter of the entity name. Third rule, two underscores consecutives are not allowed. You cannot use two underscores back to back. Also write down entity half adder in uppercase, lowercase manner, or if this entity part is written in lowercase, you can write it in uppercase also, because VHDL is a case insensitive language. So how to write the name of entity? It should be a letter, digit with the combination of underscores. First letter can't be underscore, and two successive underscores are not allowed. So here I have declared entity which name is HA, that is half adder is. The entity is been declared, entity is. Now we'll declare the ports, that is nothing but the IO interface for the entity. So IO, input and output interface for the entity half adder is port. A port is there, colon, and data type of A is input type. So it is an input interface, and which is a standard logic data type. We already discussed in the earlier session that standard logic data types are declared in the IEEE library. So we have to use that library always. In the next session, we'll write the entire program for the half adder. We will use that word. Till now, for the entity purpose, we are declaring just entity. We are not talking about the libraries. So data type is standard logic, input type. B is also input type. So there will be two inputs. Again, standard logic. S is the output interface, standard logic interface. And C is also output. S will give you sum and C will give you carry. But it has not defined yet. It is just showing that something is A and B is there from the input side, and something is out S and C. What is the relation between S and C and A and B? It is not declared in the entity. That's why entity declares only the interface, inputs and outputs, and not the description how the inputs are going to change into the output or converted into the output. After declaring entire inputs and outputs, you have to end the entity, and the comment is end half adder, and to terminate all the statements I have used the semicolons. Now if you want to comment something in the VHDL, what you can do, you can simply use 2-. So after 2-, whatever you will write, that will be the comment mode. So okay, I will comment here the declaration of entity. Here I will comment it is inputs, input, output, output. There are the comment section. So whatever if you want to comment, just put 2 dash. So this is how an entity is declared.